Hey guys, today I found another horror movie that even creeps me out. It's called Shrooms, a film adapted from Irish folklore. As a low-budget horror flick, the director managed to wrap up filming in just 7 weeks. The death mushrooms featured in the movie are based on a real species known as the death cat mushroom. These mushrooms aren't just packed with lethal toxins, they also carry powerful hallucinogenic side effects. Our story follows a group of thrill-seeking youngsters who hear rumors of a mystical mushroom in Ireland. Supposedly, if you ingest them, they provide a level of euphoria that's beyond imagination. So they decide to head overseas to see for themselves. To ensure everything goes smoothly, our lead Tara asks her online crush Jake to act as their local guide for the trip. With everyone packed and ready, the group heads straight to their destination. While everyone is busy chatting away, Tara, who's behind the wheel, gets distracted for a split second and accidentally slams into an unknown creature, sending it flying. Terrified, they all scramble out of the car to check on what happened. It turns out Tara had accidentally struck a goat. Just as they're standing there, unsure of what to do, from the dense forest nearby, 2 disheveled figures suddenly emerge. The pair are clutching axes and wooden clubs, and they look like they're definitely not to be messed with. Seeing this, Jake immediately explains the situation to Tara and the others. He tells them that these men are locals who live deep in these mountains. The goat they just accidentally killed was likely the very lunch those men were out hunting for. After saying this, he quickly drags the goat over and tosses it toward the men. This quick thinking diffuses a crisis that was about to turn ugly. Before long, the group finally reaches their intended destination. Before they begin picking any mushrooms, Jake makes it a point to emphasize a strict rule. He insists on confiscating everyone's cell phones. After all, no one wants to deal with the consequences of tripping on mushrooms, where someone might fall under the influence of heavy hallucinations and end up calling the police or babbling nonsense to their families. Everyone is quite compliant with the request, except for Bluto, who is particularly stubborn and refuses to cooperate. After several failed attempts to persuade him, a frustrated Jake has no choice but to leave the phones in Bluto's possession for the time being. Little does he know that this one careless decision will soon plunge the entire group into a terrifying nightmare. After some brief preparations, Bluto's girlfriend Holly and another team member named Troy are the first to head into the forest to start picking mushrooms. But just as Holly is about to reach for the mushrooms in front of her, Jake suddenly appears out of nowhere and firmly grabs her by the wrist. As it turns out, the mushroom Holly was about to pick wasn't the hallucinogenic kind at all. Instead, they are shrooms of death, which look almost identical to the hallucinogenic ones. On the cap of this particular mushroom, there is a pattern that looks exactly like an eye. If someone accidentally ingests it, their internal organs will usually just rupture instantly. Even if you manage to survive that and cheat death, your personality will undergo a drastic transformation. You'll not only become vicious and bloodthirsty, turning on your own kind, but you'll also gain a mysterious and incredible power of premonition. Listening to Jake deliver these warnings with such a grim expression, Holly and Troy immediately realize the gravity of the situation. After a quick discussion, they set off at once to warn the others. Unfortunately, they were one step too late. Elsewhere, Tara was walking through the jungle alone when a cluster of shrooms of death on a mound suddenly caught her eye. Driven by some mysterious force, Tara couldn't help but pluck the mushroom, and as if possessed, popped it right into her mouth. As the mushroom cap dissolved in her mouth, a second later, strange hallucinations suddenly flashed before Tara's eyes. She caught a glimpse of a hand, gently stroking her cheek. It turned out to be Jake, who had come specifically to find her. However, this wonderful sensation didn't last long. Tara suddenly began to convulse uncontrollably. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Jake spotted her just in time. Then, after performing some emergency first aid, he managed to pull Tara back from the brink of death. And the strange thing was, these events played out exactly as they had in her vision. It was clear that at this moment, Tara had gained the supernatural ability to foresee the future. But unfortunately, when Tara told her friends about what happened, they all assumed she was just suffering from food poisoning and was talking nonsense. Dismissing her claims, they did nothing but urge Tara to get some rest, and didn't take her warnings seriously at all. While Tara was asleep in the tent, Jake, with great interest, told the others a terrifying story. Supposedly, there used to be a juvenile reformatory in this area. On the surface, it was meant to rehabilitate troubled youths with bad records, but in reality, it was a den of iniquity where the local church unleashed its evil. The people of this church didn't treat the boys there like human beings at all. Specifically, one sadistic member of the clergy went as far as using various cruel torture devices to torment them. This kind of inhumane existence was their daily reality. This continued until the arrival of a pair of twins, which finally brought everything to an end. Because the church had hanged his younger brother, the enraged older brother picked a full 3 pounds of shroom of death from the mountains. He poisoned everyone in the church almost overnight. The only survivor was a feral child who had been raised by dogs. Ever since that incident, the older twin and that sadistic cultist began wandering the woods as vengeful spirits, constantly hunting tourists who ventured into these deep mountains. After hearing this chilling story, everyone felt a bit creeped out at first, but they soon put it all out of their minds. Troy and his girlfriend Lisa were so impatient that they started getting busy in their tent. But before they could take things any further, a creepy shadow suddenly appeared outside the tent. The figure kept pacing back and forth outside. His mood ruined, Troy flew into a rage, and without a word, he stormed over to Bluto's tent, dragging the confused Bluto outside. It turned out, Troy had never gotten along with the dirty-minded Bluto, so he instinctively assumed he was being a perverted voyeur. Bluto, who hadn't done anything, obviously couldn't stand being wrongly accused, and landed a heavy punch right on Troy's nose. Seeing that, the two were about to escalate into a violent physical fight. Jake rushed over immediately to break it up. After much persuasion, he managed to prevent a disaster. But what Bluto never expected was that even his girlfriend Holly started to doubt him. This made him, who was already frustrated, reach his absolute breaking point. He immediately ditched his girlfriend and went out alone to drink the mushroom soup. Meanwhile, Tara, who was fast asleep, suddenly dreamed of a terrifying scene. Under the influence of the hallucinogenic mushrooms, a highly agitated Bluto wandered deep into the heart of the forest. There, he actually discovered an old cow that could talk. After a brief conversation with the cow, Bluto was guided toward a discarded vehicle nearby. Eerily, this long-abandoned car unexpectedly flashed its headlights 3 times. Seeing this, Bluto instantly recalled what Jake had told him before their trip. If a car on the road flashes its lights 3 times, it means the couple inside is inviting him to join in on the action. An excited Bluto didn't think twice and approached the car. Just as he was lost in the moment, while he was lost in his own world of pleasure, the persistent Bluto leaned in toward the car window once more to peer inside, but unexpectedly, he was violently slammed against the car door by an invisible force. Immediately after, he let out a blood-curdling scream and collapsed to the ground, drenched in blood. The cultist ghost hiding inside the car clearly had no intention of letting Bluto off the hook. Just as the terrified Bluto was struggling to crawl away, the horrific cultist instantly appeared by his side, raising a sharp weapon to finish him off for good. This gruesome scene jolted Tara awake in a cold sweat. Realizing that none of this had actually happened yet, she rushed out to find Bluto, following the path from her vision. Fortunately, Bluto had only just reached the old cow's side. Thanks to Tara's timely intervention, the delirious Bluto managed to narrowly escape with his life. However, even though he cheated death this time, he wouldn't be so lucky the second time. Early the next morning, Holly discovered that Bluto had vanished without a trace. After searching with Tara to no avail, she immediately rounded up everyone to help look for her boyfriend. During the search, Troy suddenly thought of calling a rescue team, only to realize that Bluto had already made off with all their phones. With no other options left, the group decided to split into 2 teams to continue their search. However, Tara hadn't gone very far before strange fragments of a hallucination began to invade her mind once again. In an instant, it was as if Tara saw Bluto's skull being crushed by the ghost of the cultist. Right then, the ghostly figure was actually closing in on her, step by step. Sensing the danger, Tara didn't have time to explain anything. She frantically urged Holly and Lisa to run back the way they had come. Only after making sure the cultist's ghost wasn't following them did she finally stop to catch her breath. In a frustrating turn of events, Holly and Lisa suddenly got into a heated argument. The reason was simply because Lisa suspected her boyfriend had feelings for Holly. As the two of them began to scrap and claw at each other, they ended up tumbling all the way down the hillside. They eventually landed hard inside a deep dirt pit. Before the three of them could even recover from the shock, the ghost of the cultist came charging after them. To stay alive, they had no choice but to keep running for their lives. However, while they were passing a large tree, Tara accidentally slammed into it and was knocked straight to the ground. As she lay there in a daze, another hallucination suddenly flashed through her mind. This time it was a dark premonition of Lisa's death. We see Lisa, panicked and desperate, fleeing toward a wooden cabin. There, she encounters the two strange men they had seen earlier on the mountain. Perhaps thinking the living were more trustworthy than ghosts, the helpless Lisa could only beg them for help. However, as soon as they led her inside, the older man began to leer at her with a lecherous grin, shamelessly whispering filthy things to her. Then his companion Bernie told Lisa that the survivors of the reformatory weren't just limited to that feral child. The two of them had also narrowly escaped the disaster and had been relying on the mountain's mushrooms to survive all these years. After hearing their story, the terrified Lisa made up a quick excuse and rushed back out into the wilderness. Before long, she unexpectedly stumbled into a large hollow woven from branches, where she saw a man in tattered clothes. Judging by his bizarre posture, he was clearly the feral child who had survived. Seeing this, the kind-hearted Lisa hurriedly pulled out some candies and offered them, hoping her kindness might reach him. Little did she know, the feral child was consumed by savage brutality. He lunged forward and bit Lisa to death. At the same time, Jake and Troy were also experiencing something terrifying. While the two were searching for Bluto, they suddenly heard someone calling their names. At first, they thought it was just a hallucination from the mushroom soup. But as that eerie voice grew louder and louder, the terrified pair finally realized the truth. This voice was actually coming from the ghost of the older twin brother. He even began taunting them by pelting them with stones. Realizing they would be stoned to death if they stayed, the two had no choice but to endure the pain and flee. A few more minutes passed, and Tara, having recovered from her hallucinations, reunited with Holly by a large tree. Then, the two of them spotted Jake and Troy from across the river. After a brief exchange using hand signals, they finally agreed to meet up at the ruins of the reformatory. But no sooner had they finished talking than Tara faced another unexpected incident. Relying on her special premonition abilities, Tara deduced that she would be the next one to die. But as soon as she told Holly about this, Holly, fearing she might be dragged into it, decisively abandoned her and ran off into the distance. Unfortunately, this time Tara's premonition was way off. The next unlucky soul chosen by death wasn't actually her. It was Holly, who was planning to escape on her own. Meanwhile, Tara, even though she sensed Holly's gruesome death, she had no time to grieve. Instead, she rushed toward the reformatory, determined to have a final showdown with the cultist's ghost. At the same time, Jake and Troy arrived there as agreed. To avoid any potential danger, the two were forced to hide in a dark room. They planned to escape through the back door, but just as Troy tried to open the door, suddenly from right beneath his feet, a figure wearing a burlap sack lunged out. It was the ghostly form of the older twin. Troy didn't even have time to scream before she was killed instantly. By the time Jake realized something was wrong and turned around, there was nothing behind him but the chilling, dead air. Before he could even process what had happened, a terrifying voice suddenly echoed from the other side of the door. Terrified, Jake yanked the door open and scrambled into another room. Then, he cautiously peered through a hole in the door to see what was on the other side. In a desperate attempt to save his life, Jake actually jumped from a height of over 10 meters. Just as Tara finished searching the building, she also ran out. Seeing that Jake was completely unable to walk, she refused to abandon her boyfriend and immediately helped him up, limping together toward the jungle. However, the brutal cultist ghost continued to relentlessly haunt the two of them. To get rid of this menace once and for all, brave Tara left Jake waiting there, while she cautiously raised her weapon, searching for any sign of the ghost. Unfortunately, as soon as she left, the cultist ghost appeared above Jake's head without warning, swiftly taking his life. By the time Tara rushed back, it was already too late. She didn't even have time to say goodbye to Jake before she suddenly looked up and noticed the cultist ghost nearby. Driven by a desperate will to survive, Tara had to set out on a frantic escape once again. But this time, she accidentally crashed into a tree, instantly falling unconscious once more. When Tara slowly opened her eyes, it seemed as though the entire nightmare was finally over. A rescue helicopter saved Tara from this living hell. In addition to that, a swarm of police officers soon arrives at the scene. They forcibly haul away the prime suspect, Bernie. But the most bone-chilling part of it all is that Tara simply stands there with a blank expression, watching the scene unfold. She keeps muttering under her breath that Bernie isn't the killer. In the next moment, the horrifying truth is finally laid bare. It turns out the gruesome deaths of all her friends were actually caused by Tara herself. After she consumed those death mushrooms, she didn't just gain the eerie ability to see the future. Her personality also shifted exactly as Jake had warned. She became incredibly vicious and bloodthirsty. Her first victim was Bluto, who was already lost in deep hallucinations. She staged his disappearance and made it look like he had run off with everyone's phones. Then, by systematically isolating her friends, she picked them off one by one, sending them to their graves. As the movie draws to a close, Tara has completely devolved into a mindless, cold-blooded killing machine. After ruthlessly stabbing the rescue worker who was trying to save her, she decides to bring this nightmare back with her to the heart of the city. And with that, the movie comes to an end.